All right, Phil. It's game week. In the words of Coach Prime, give me my theme music.
Plan B.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the BIA podcast, college football podcast. I'm Hugie. That's Phil. Phil, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Excited. Week 1 is here. Can't wait.
Yes, it's game week. The Buckeyes are taking on the Indiana Hoosiers at 3:30 this Saturday. And we're going to definitely get into a lot of that talk. We have some news that Ryan Day came forth and said during his press conference on Tuesday. But I want to start off first by doing a small recap of week 0. We're going to talk about one player that stood out and one team that stood out. And so with that, I'm going to start off with the player. I mean, there, to me, there's only two choices, but Zachariah Branch from USC. He's wearing the single digit number 1. You can't miss him, but the defense for San Jose State did, and special teams, because he racked up 232 total purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. And the reason why I wanted to point out Zach Branch is just because I looked up something that 24/7 Sports posted on Tuesday. It was just a comparison of different skill players throughout USC's recent history and their debut stats. So these are names that we all pretty much know. I would say some casual fans and definitely the diehards know. So Juju Smith-Schuster, in his debut versus Fresno State, he recorded 4 receptions for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. Reggie Bush. This one was actually shocking to me, man. His debut game was against Auburn. 5 rushes, 9 yards. The great Reggie Bush. Robert Woods, in his debut versus Hawaii, he had 4 receptions for 142 yards. And Joe McKnight, and this will be the last one I talk about, 6 rushes, 26 rushing yards, and 8 receiving yards. So this is all compared to Zach Branch's 232 all-purpose yards. That obviously came with a big amount based on his kick return for a touchdown, and that added to his total being 2 touchdowns for that game. So I'm really looking forward to him. And I mean, the other thing just to really note real quick is that he's a freshman. So true freshman making those numbers. It's going to be really exciting to see what he does as the season progresses. So with that, Phil, I wanted to go ahead and kick over the team to note from week 0 for you.
Yeah, I'll just add one quick thing about Branch is that he was a 5-star, 5 stars, 5-star in every sort of network for last season. We have a similar player next year coming in, Jeremiah Smith, who those two were compared a lot, even like this year, kind of like who's going to end up having a better career. And so hopefully our guy saw that performance and said, okay, I got to come out smoking in game 1 next season for the Buckeyes. So for me, I want to just kind of talk about Notre Dame. Notre Dame, obviously a future opponent of Ohio State. Last year, after the game against Ohio State, they also struggled against some weaker opponents. And so coming against Navy, they're a 3-score touchdown or three touchdown favorite, expected to win, but they absolutely dominated more than I think really anybody expected. Final score was 42-3. And, Sam Hartman, he had a total of 4 incompletions. He also had a total of 4 touchdowns. That's pretty impressive. Obviously, Navy's not great, but that's very efficient. 19 for 23, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Notre Dame controlled the line of scrimmage. And so I think that's exciting if you're a Notre Dame fan. And if you're an Ohio State fan, I think it makes that game even sort of more hyped in our eyes to say, okay, at least Notre Dame is better this year. Whether or not they're good enough to beat us, we don't know, but they are clearly better. They showed that against Navy. only giving up 3 points and pretty much scoring at will in the first half.
Yeah, I was watching that game as well, and Sam Hartman looked great. I mean, but like you said, it's against Navy. We'll see what happens when he goes up against better defense in week 4. This week, I believe they play Tennessee State. I think
Yep,
Eddie
HBC.
George. Yep, Eddie George, former Buckeye, Heisman player. He's going to be leading Tennessee State into South Bend this weekend. And so, yeah, good luck to them. And we'll see what Sam Hartman does against Tennessee State. So, want to go ahead and switch gears now. We had some news that came out on Tuesday as Ryan Day announced that Kyle McCord will be the starting quarterback uh, this Saturday against the Indiana Hoosiers. Phil, I know that you've got a lot to talk about, or that you want to say. I've got some things I want to say, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you first to talk about this news.
Yeah. So, I mean, last week, Justin, you mentioned that you are excited and hope to see Devin Brown out there as our starting quarterback. You're not alone. A lot of Buckeye Nation was favoring Devin Brown. Um, to me, I was commenting on doing some Twitter fights this week, and I had to say to people, wanting something doesn't make it true. I think that we want Devin Brown to be this dynamic passer of the football and a dynamic runner, and we know he was able to do that in high school, and so we just believe he will be able to do that at the next level. I've seen people when they're making their argument about why Devin Brown should have been the starter, and they're posting highlights from high school, or they're posting highlights from the spring game. And they're using that as justification to say that is worth more than what the coaches have been seeing all throughout spring and fall camps. I think that since the decision has been made, there have been people who are upset with it, and I really just think that um, if you operate under the assumption that Devin Brown was better than Kyle McCord, then certainly it is disappointing if the better player didn't win out. But there's really no reason to doubt Ryan Day, who has pretty much done nothing but put his quarterbacks in the first round of the NFL draft. I'm going to trust him over people. That includes you, Hugie. I'm going to trust him over pretty much everybody. I mean, really, Lincoln Riley is the only person I'll at least hear out if they have a different opinion than Ryan Day on a quarterback. And so I'm excited for at least the initial game one starter to be named. I do anticipate, we'll talk about that today, for the game, both playing. And I think both will have a chance to kind of show what they've got now, to show, hey, you saw Kyle McCord when he was a freshman against a bad Akron team. And so what has he done since then? How has he gotten better? Get to see what they do on the field. And so I'm excited to kind of be able to at least have some footage for all the armchair GMs for Ohio State to be able to base their feelings off of. Right now, it's just based off of hopes and wishes and assumptions. And that's it. And if that's all I have, I'd rather just go with what Day and Dennis have actually seen. And I don't believe they would put Ohio State. I don't believe they wouldn't put us in the best position to win. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm excited to see it actually play out and know that we'll have a couple of games to kind of solidify it. What are you thinking, Yuji? Now that the decision's been made, now it's at least for game one. How are you feeling?
Well, okay. So let me answer your question first. I feel fine. I feel completely fine. I'm a-okay, man. I want to say that I did say that I wanted to see Devin Brown start. And a lot of other Buckeye fans wanted to see him start. But I want to throw a few names out to you. JT Barrett. You remember JT Barrett?
I believe so. Yep.
Okay. Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. Dwayne Haskins He was starting quarterback for a year at Ohio State. I know we all remember him. Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud. All of these quarterbacks have, outside of the fact that they played for Ohio State and started, um, the thing they have in common is Ryan Day. Whether Ryan Day was the offensive coordinator at a time or head coach. So uh, the one thing that I don't have a national Buckeye voice yet. We're working on that with this with the BIA podcast, but we just need to relax, man. Like I thought about this to myself. Like whoever's the starting quarterback is going to be for any game that we have, we need to. Buckeye Nation needs to be behind that person 100%. I understand. Like we're going to have some complaints in terms of or even thoughts like, hey, we might think that the second guy is better, but at least with playing both of the guys in this game, more than likely the next two games as well, where they get some reps, we're going to see who plays better. We're going to be able to see that, and we still have to trust Ryan Day. Here's my only question. This is the only thing that I question with the way this process played out. Why take so long to name the starter? Because taking the amount of time that it took to name the starter, then that begins to I would say create that speculation that Devin Brown had, I'm sorry, Kyle McCord has been here for 3 years. He's a junior,
Mhm.
and Devin Brown is a sophomore. If Kyle McCord, who when you mentioned that the footage of Devin Brown playing in the spring game, you're talking about the 21 spring game because this last year he didn't play. So Devin Brown did get some reps in the spring game last year, not the spring game this year.
Right.
But I'm saying that to say that Kyle McCord did, and he didn't look great. He didn't look terrible. It was somewhere in the middle, depending on who you ask, right? And still, even with me saying what I'm saying in terms of you know me questioning why it took so long, I still have to fall back on uh, a trusting in Ryan Day's judgment. And so that's all I've got really. That's basically it. I mean, um, just got to trust in Ryan Day. I mean, he's I don't have to answer for who the starting quarterback is, but and so I think that with his track record, in 100% agreement with you that they're going to put us in the best position to win. So
Yeah, yeah. I think we assume it's a meritocracy. We assume that if it took so long, it probably means that those two players are very close to each other. Um, Now you might think to yourself, Kyle McCord should be further ahead if he has one more year in the program, but that didn't turn out to be true. Maybe that just means Devin Brown is has a lot of talent, and that talent was almost enough to overcome in the offseason a player with more experience. That's promising. That's great to have in the quarterback room. Um, but if he was clearly better, I don't think there's any doubt to me that he would be the one being named starter. And if he's clearly better in the next 3 games, then he will eventually be named starter. Like that's cream rise to the top. If it didn't happen already, it it, and he hasn't shown that, he still can, and I hope he does. I don't really get the idea of rooting against our own players. I'm hoping all of them play amazing, where they all have to be. They're playing so well, they have to be on the field. So yeah, we'll see what ends up turning out.
the one thing I missed in my take was just to say that Ohio State fans, me listing those names, bruh, like Ohio State fans are spoiled. We're spoiled to the point where, we know what we want and we want it now. But this has to be a process. This year is different. Like we may have two good quarterbacks, but guess what? They both can't play on the field at the same time. Like you can only have one quarterback play at a time. So there may be some plays where Devin Brown's out there. There may be some plays where Kyle McCord's out there. And uh, at the end of the day, everybody wants to see a W in the for our record. Um, so yeah, as long as we score more points than the other team, I don't care who's at quarterback. So with Kyle McCord starting this week, I wish him well, and I also am looking forward to seeing Devin Brown play too.
Same, same.
So yeah. So speaking of that, for our listeners, let's go ahead and jump into this matchup with the Indiana Hoosiers. Uh, we're going to talk about the biggest challenge that the team has, in our own opinions. What the biggest challenge is going into this game, and so I'll go ahead and take first crack at this, man. For me, the defense is the defense giving up explosive plays and making everything difficult for Indiana's offense is going to be uh, what I want to see. Is going to be a challenge because think about this the last two games that Ohio State played last year. I know that it's a new team. We've got a lot of returning talent and starters on both sides of the ball, more so on the defense, I believe. And
Mhm.
speaking of that, though, I thought, man, it's crazy. Let me just tell you a story, Phil. I was getting out of my car one day, and my random thought of football, just thinking about the game last year with Michigan, and I don't remember what the score was because I purposely recycled that out of my brain. But I thought about the experience, man, of sitting there watching that game and remembering four touchdowns that Michigan scored on explosive plays. And I just thought to myself about the Georgia game. I think about that less than I think about the Michigan game, but Georgia, they came back on some explosive plays. Big, I mean, plays that allowed that and put them in a position to win. And I just think to myself, I looked back, I wanted to look back at what last year's game was like. So last year's game ended up with a win for us. It was 56-14. It was a home game. That was the Cameron Babb game. Emotional moment for him, emotional moment for the program. Connor Baselak was the starting quarterback for Indiana. He went 3 for 5 for 12 yards. This was all in the first quarter. At one point in time, the score was 21-0, Ohio State. In comes in Dexter Williams Jr. He ended up basically having he went 6 for 19, 107 passing yards and two touchdowns, 46 rushing yards. His numbers weren't great, but on his first pass attempt, he threw a pass and completed it for 49 yards, putting them in the red zone. Now, our defense didn't have an egregious game. It was not an egregious performance, but it's those plays that end up becoming explosive that I think that the good teams took advantage of Ohio State last year. I don't want to see that happen this year. So for me, the biggest challenge is minimizing explosive plays. And here's the last point. I don't want to see explosive plays, and no fan wants to see explosive plays. We know we're not going to be able to stop it, even when the second team defense comes in and it's a blowout or whatever the case may be. But let me just take you back real quick to 2019 when we had Chase Young and Jeff Okuda on the sideline during blowout games. You saw them getting into the faces of the second team defense if they gave up anything. Like they were that stingy, and I just want that same mentality so that can become a habit going into each and every game, no matter if it's a game against a lesser opponent or someone who's going to be a more even matchup. And so I just want to see that from the Buckeyes. I want them to make everything hard for this redshirt freshman quarterback Taven Jackson, who's going to be starting on Saturday for the Hoosiers.
Well, thank you for re-traumatizing me by bringing up the Michigan game and the Georgia game. Oh, in case one didn't get me, you made sure you dropped both of those in there for me. So yeah, no, those are great. Those are great points. Definitely want to, even in a big victory, still don't want to see that particular type of hit for the defense to take. For me, I'm thinking of a couple players that are going to have this biggest challenge, and one of them is Carson Hinsman. If you don't know, that is going to be the new starting center for Ohio State this year. Lost our center to the NFL in the draft this year, and so what I'm thinking about is we're going to have two quarterbacks playing, right? And so that's great. You said you want to see Devin Brown too. You want to see him get out there, and that is great. I want to see that as well. But when you think about an offense, the offense is run by the quarterback. He is the one who is setting the pace, setting the direction, and all of that. And you're going to have a quarterback. We don't know if that quarterback's going to be changing every drive. Hope not. Every quarter, one in the first half, one in the second half, maybe 3 drives at a time. We don't know, because those give very different perspectives in terms of seeing what the quarterback can do, depending on which of those you choose. Either way, you're going to have the rest of that offense be quarterbacked by 2 different people with, at least according to most fans, 2 different skill sets, right? And so, one, we know that quarterback center chemistry is important, right? Regardless of how you're getting hiked the ball, you're in the shotgun, still important to have that chemistry between center and quarterback. And we have a center who's going to have to, in his first start, right? He's going to have to be not only making sure that he's on point with Kyle McCord, but also on point with Devin Brown and maybe Lincoln Kineholtz. Who knows? So I think that's going to be tough. The same goes for our skill players. Even on the outside, we have great receivers. We have some talented tight ends. We have great running backs. All of them are going to have to be potentially, from series to series, getting the ball from a different guy. And I worry about the chemistry. I worry about the rhythm, actually. That's the one word I would say is my biggest challenge, is rhythm. Can we get a rhythm? Does the quarterback find rhythm, but also do the skill players and the offensive line around them find rhythm? Does the running back who's taking the handoff from the quarterback, who probably is delivering that in a slightly different way, are they ready each time they're getting the ball to secure that and not have a fumble behind the line of scrimmage, or our quarterback, our wide receivers on the outside who may be running a slant route, or they kind of getting the ball where they expect to based on who's throwing the ball. So we imagine, even if we think they're both great quarterbacks, that they're going to be slightly different. So I'm worried about rhythm, and I think that rhythm could potentially take off 14 points off of our score, where we just aren't getting outplayed, but we're making rhythm mistakes. The ball isn't where it's supposed to be. We're slower. We're not getting to the line. The balls, we get a delay a game, not because the crowd is so amazing, but just because, the call from the sideline is taking longer to get there, or, that kind of thing. So I am worried about rhythm. I think it's going to be our biggest challenge. I don't think it's the kind of challenge that, makes us have to worry about whether or not we win the game. But I do think for the bettors out there, I think that rhythm challenge could potentially take some points off of the board for us on offense, even though we're not playing great defense.
Just want to say a shout out to Hoosier Nation. Should be a good
Who?
atmosphere, man. It should be a good atmosphere. There is gonna be plenty of Buckeye fans in Memorial Stadium. So, and just as a disclosure for our audience, we don't talk about our takes before we come on here. So it's great that I talked about the defense, you talked about the offense, kind of keep it well rounded there. So next, we're gonna move into talking about the best unit, and I'll go ahead and kick that over to you first. Who do you think is going to be the best unit on Saturday for Ohio State?
Yeah, so I'll switch sides and I'll go to the defense. I'm going to go with the linebackers. Okay.
Mm.
We know starting linebackers, we're going to have Tommy Two Thumbs and Steel Chambers. Okay. So we're going to have those two at least. And, say what you want to say about those two guys. I like them both. They may or may not be the most athletically gifted players on our team, but they do have a lot of experience, and I do believe they're going to be in the right place at the right time. First game, I'm a big believer in week one. You know, jitters and weird things can happen in week one that don't happen the rest of the season, just because it's the first game for that team, and the first game on the road in this case for us as well. And so I think those two guys will kind of hold us down, be in the right place. Tommy's going to be directing. He's going to be, he's our, cliche coach on the field, right? In the middle of that defense. So I think he's going to be directing us. Hopefully, I mean, we've seen him give up some big plays too for some wrong angles, but hopefully he's got his captain mentality. His captain hat is one of our three captains, and I believe that kind of leadership is going to be important in a week one game. I see our linebackers being our most solid unit. The unit that honestly I feel like I am not worried about, honestly, them being the ones who give up a big play on Saturday. I really feel like they're going to be solid. I hope they can be great. I hope they can like get in the backfield, make some tackles behind the line of scrimmage. But I'm actually not at all worried about them being, the Achilles heel. And, to finish on the linebackers, we hope that we see CJ Hicks playing on Saturday. Now he could play in sort of a hybrid jack position. Knowles has all these names that are hard to remember, but he could play alongside of the two of them, or he could get in and spell some of them, either of them throughout the game, or he could play a lot, in the second half if that's the case. But he is one player that I think a lot of people want to see get some meaningful time. And we kind of were promised that this year he's going to get in the game. So whether that's in crunch time, alongside of them, or whether that's after the game is already in control, I'm excited to see him, and I think he's going to do. I think he might have one of the best sort of debuts on the team in terms of a player who is significantly increasing their role this season. And so, best unit, I've got two people who are not going to mess up, who are going to be solid, and I've got one guy who I think will be one of the stories coming out of the game to say, hey, when this guy got in, he showed that by mid-season he's going to have a huge role in this team.
When you first started out, the image that I had in my mind was Jordan from The Last Dance when he was listening to Gary Payton on that iPad. And he's just like listening intently. He's like, listening to every single word that dude's saying. But no, I'm with you. I mean, the linebackers are going to hopefully eat. Not hopefully, they will eat in this game. That's a great proven unit from last year. And so to me, when I think about this, I thought about like, man, let me think. If this was a question on a test and there was one right answer, I feel like this would be the right answer. Not saying that there's any wrong answers, but for me, bruh, it better be the quarterbacks. If the quarterbacks are not the best unit, then I don't understand what all the hoop is. It what the Let me organize my thoughts. If it's not the quarterbacks, if the both quarterbacks don't play well, it'll be understandable. Like, okay, this is their first Big Ten opponent that they've got some significant number of snaps against, but in order for me to look at this team and say, okay, if the receivers, somebody could say, oh yeah, the receivers are going to be the best unit. Well, the receivers can't be, doing what they do if the quarterback's not good. So I think that, and this is not just for like, when Devin Brown gets in. If that's the case, then to me, still the quarterbacks would still be the best unit for Saturday. So for me, I feel like I'm expecting the quarterbacks to be the best. From what I understand, I mean, we can talk about other position groups still trying to jockey for a starting job, but obviously you only have one starting quarterback on a team. To see them compete, like I want to see both of them do well. Even and for us to make it hard, I like going from obviously these first three games are going to be uh fairly not I want to say I'm trying to use my words carefully here. The second and third game are going to be fairly easy. This first game, I will challenge myself on what I said in the last episode in terms of saying that it's going to be that we're going to win easily in this game. This is a Big Ten opponent. This is the first game. Everybody's pretty much healthy, and so they're at full strength. Both teams are at full strength. It's for me though. I want to be able to see them compete against each other, drive and on drive. Like for us as fans to be able to see the same thing that hopefully the coaches have been seeing in the fact that it's hard to determine who's going to be the starter. So for me, the quarterbacks better be the best unit going into Saturday, so that we can have a great outlook for the rest of the year.
Well,
So
let me look at my iPad and say, because I don't know. I would say maybe temper your expectations a little bit for the quarterbacks. There's going to be some growing pains, and they're going to make mistakes. I think we should expect them to make mistakes, and they should make more mistakes than Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka. Like, those guys are professionals. They plan on being in the league next year. They've already got their first round draft grade. So like I wouldn't be surprised if you end up seeing maybe a ball that is thrown behind Emeka Ibuka and he still makes that catch, right? So the quarterbacks have to be good enough. I'm not that confident they'll be great in this first game. But I do hope that the other units pick them up, where they are, where they're weak, I guess, because they should be able. We have a talent that should be able to make up for some things, some tight end, catching a block that helps the quarterback get that one more second, even though he should have already made the read, or like I said, the wide receiver adjusting to a ball that's maybe misplaced. I think it's possible, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely hoping that they do well, but I don't know if I'm hoping that one does. I don't know if I would hope that Devin Brown does really better than McCord, because that's going to be such a conversation. Hopefully, at least their contexts are like similar. Hopefully, their situations look similar. So we're not like comparing, apples to oranges, but we'll see.
like I totally get what you're saying. And there's going to be learning curves. I'm not expecting them to be perfect. I'm not expecting them to have the game that Sam Hartman just had against Navy. You know what I'm saying? I want to see the competition bring the best out of both of those guys. That's what I'm saying. And I think that obviously they're competing against another team. They're competing against a team that will hopefully not have as good of a defense as they've been seeing in fall camp, and the teams that the defense that they've been practicing against in Ohio State. But um, I still want to see flashes, man. Like I want to see some flashes. Of course, we're going to run the ball. I feel like the easiest answer actually is the running back room in terms of the offense. If you look at offensively, like that, them having a good running game this game, uh, that could be something that somebody goes with. But then it goes back to one the challenge that you talked about in terms of just that rhythm that the offensive line and our new starting center, is going to have based on the fact of having to deal with two different quarterbacks in the same game. So, but for me, bro, I'm looking at the quarterback this game. So, and now I'm rooting for them to have the best unit on the team, and have some get basically everybody around the nation talking about our quarterback room. Um, with that said, let's go ahead and get our final score predictions out there. My final score prediction, based on everything I've said on this episode, is Ohio State wins 34-3. That's right. I do not want to see a touchdown scored. I don't want to see a touchdown scored until week 4. To be honest, that's my expectation. I believe that Jim Knowles had a great defense when he left Oklahoma State, and I think part of that was because he has some players that were in that system for a while, and so for this to be the second year for a lot of these guys to dealing with Jim Knowles, I want to see some improvement in this, man. And I would say that Indiana not scoring and them being led by a redshirt freshman transfer from Tennessee, he's got to be good to score on our defense. That's what I want to be able to say if they end up scoring. So, what's your final prediction?
Listen, if Ohio State can't score 40 points against Indiana, I take back everything I said about Ryan Day and his offensive coaching staff being trusted. You got to score 40 against Indiana, man. Come on, 34 points. That's ridiculous. I'm gonna go 49-10. Ohio State winning. I want to see. I think I expect us to score a lot. Again, whether we're doing it in the running game or the passing game, I think that Indiana is, we talked about challenges. It's really not going to be Indiana's defense that gives the challenge. That was neither of our prediction there. So given that, and given Ohio State's propensity to score a lot of points for the last 4 years, they had one of the number one scoring offenses in the country. Part of the way you become a top 3 scoring offense in the country is when you play bad defenses, you run it up. So, and on top of that, there's incentive to run up the score in the sense that there's incentive to keep on passing the ball into the second half, right? If we're up, 34-3 in the third quarter, there's incentive to keep passing it because that might be when Devin Brown is really starting to get his opportunities, right? And so given that, I think we throw the ball longer into the game than we might usually do so in a blowout. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with 49. I feel like that's being conservative. But yeah, 49-10 for me. Go
I hope
Bucks.
you're right on. Yes, absolutely. Go Bucks. I hope you're right on the offensive firepower that we do have. I think in my mind, I was thinking about the clock changes, man, like how we're going to be basically having a running clock even after first downs. And I was trying to pay attention to how that played into week 0. But there were still blowouts. I mean, there were still blowouts that happened in the games. Specifically, I'm talking about the Navy and Notre Dame game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we are both predicting a win. And on our show next, we are going to talk about the game show that's sweeping the nation, Pick Six. That's coming up next. And we're back for our week 1 best bets that we call Pick Six. I pick 3, Phil picks 3, and that makes 6. So we did a competition last week. If you've listened to our first episode of week 0, Pick Six, we said that the winner of that would basically go ahead and be able to pick first this week. So, Phil,
Did I?
you did win.
Oh, I won. Was it close? I'm just curious. Was it close? That it was like a narrow victory, or did I just blow you out and you went 0-3 picking last week? I can't remember.
I went 0-3 picking. And yeah, I went 0-3 picking. But in the fourth quarter of every game I picked, I was in it. But, it is what it is.
That's worth about 0 points. Okay, yeah. So thank you for the honor of going first for the first of many weeks this season. So the way we do our picks is that I can go wherever I want to, can choose whichever one I want, basically a game that I want to ensure that I get in one of these categories. And for me, I'm going to start with the upset this week. This is a conference game. I do like week 1 conference games. It's exciting. Start off with something that kind of means something. And 2 teams are playing from the same division. I will say it's less of confidence in the upsetter and more of me fading the upsettee. I'm going to choose Nebraska. The Cornhuskers, they are right now a 7-point underdog. As a reminder, the upset has to be at least 7 points. And I'm choosing Nebraska to upset Minnesota, who I've already gone on the record as saying I think they're going to lose at least 5 games this year. So why not start off with week 1 against a team that's got a lot to prove? New coach trying to start a new era. Just had a setback this week with a player getting arrested. But they have still a lot of energy around that program. Give me Nebraska +7 over Minnesota on the road. Road dog.
Of course, you were going to pick that. That seems like to be the most probable upset based on the odds out there right now.
Sure.
But Team Hugie has a backup plan. Actually, a couple backup plans here.
Okay.
Want to make sure that as I find this game, that it is still within the parameters of an upset.
As he's looking,
Looking
a reminder that
for
we use the Yahoo Sports book for our numbers in case you're following along and trying to see those same. So we use Yahoo Sports book. These are the odds as of Wednesday.
So for this one, let me just make sure as I actually find my other one. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this one.
I hope so. We're waiting for you to.
I'm going to go ahead and take an odd game here to start week 1. I'm going to go ahead and take Colorado State over Washington State. Washington State is favored by 11.5 points. So give me the Rams to win. Outright win. +7. No, sorry, +11.5. But actually, no. These we don't need. I actually don't need to put these because we are. This is our upset pick. So
we're betting these money line, so it doesn't matter the spread. But it did matter the fact that it was at least 7 in terms of being able to choose it. So Hugie goes with 11.5. That's a bolder pick. I will admit that. And a future L for you. So where are we going next, Hugie?
We're going to go to the lock. Go to the lock. And my lock is this is one of those schools where you got to say it a certain way.
Okay.
We're going with Louisville. Louisville -7.5.
Anything make you feel good about that?
I mean, just the fact that they're first off playing Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is, I mean, no disrespect to Georgia Tech. They are playing in Atlanta. It is at 7:30 on a Friday. Dang, I don't like picking Thursday or Friday games, but it is what it is. It was Purdue's former coach. Can you help me out here? Louisville's new head coach, basically, is
Jeff Brom.
Yes, Jeff Brom. Thank you. Jeff Brom bringing his offensive mind to Louisville, and the fact that Louisville has a pretty easy schedule, some would say. I want to say that they want to get this season started off right, and I do too. So let's go ahead and lay it with the Cardinals, 7.5.
Okay. I can't say I agree with that pick. I actually thought about for my upset taking Georgia Tech, but didn't feel confident enough in that. So you might be right. I'm not with you on that, but you might be right. Okay, I've changed my decision on this lock 3 times in the last 10 seconds, but unlike you, I'm just going to get right to it. Give me Tennessee. Now Tennessee is I have to take 28 points. That's 4 touchdowns. I usually don't like taking spreads that big, but they're at home and they got a lot to prove. New quarterback. This team thinks they're a playoff contender. P.S. They are not, but they think they are. And week one, they'll still think that. So Joe Milton coming out. I'm not a Joe Milton believer. I also have actually bet against this team winning 9.5 games. But this ain't one of their losses. And this is a high-powered offense that wants to score, feels it's important for them to be a top 5 scoring offense in the country. They won't lose an opportunity to put up points. 4 touchdowns is a lot for a lock, but I'm sticking with them.
Wow. You're gonna pick the team going against UVA, their first game since some stuff happened last year. Okay, man. Oh, by the way, that game is not uh, at home for Tennessee. That game is in Tennessee, but it is in Nashville, Tennessee. So I get it. It's the same thing, but it is actually classified as a
It's a little different. I
neutral site
appreciate
game.
that.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say, just as a reminder for folks for the locks, the scoring that we have for these 3 picks, the way that it works for the lock is that if you get it right, that's 1 point. Great. If you get it wrong, you actually lose 1 point. So the lock is the only pick that we have in the pick 6 where you can actually lose a point. So it's the one that you should feel very confident in. It can be any spread, but if you don't cover, then it's going to be -1 point.
Yeah, and I feel like putting my point here already and putting -1 for yours, but I'm gonna wait till the result. Wait for the
I
result.
I do kind of have instant buyer's remorse on it, and then when you added the neutral site game in, I remember now it's in the Titan Stadium. I'm not feeling as great about that, but look, I stand by. I stand with the Cavaliers of Virginia. I hope they have a good season. It doesn't look like it's going to be that way. But if they do have a good season, it won't be because they played well against Tennessee. It'll be because they played well in the weak Atlantic Coast Conference. Okay.
Yeah, shout out to Wahoo Nation.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully I have some friends who went to UVA, so hopefully they are listening and cursing at their phones or their car receivers. Okay, my turn again. Just
Yes, it is your turn for the toss up.
okay. Toss up any game that's basically close to call. We usually have 3.5 points be our meter here, so we have enough games to choose from. And this week there are definitely a couple. I'm now pulling a Hugie and stalling a bit as I make a final pick.
I don't know why you said that. I've definitely been quick on the draw, but
Okay, so listen.
So you can say pulling you.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Anyway, so I have a general rule where I don't like it when you avoid the big games. If there's a big game in college football, we should be talking about it. We should be picking it. We should have something invested in that game. So I don't know about Justin, but I'm not going to run from it. Okay, I'm going to take a trip down to Florida, Orlando to be specific. Speaking of neutral site games, the LSU Tigers play the Florida State Seminoles. This is a 5 versus 8 matchup. 2 teams who also believe that they are playoff contenders, and I actually think that both of them are this year. LSU because they're pretty good and they play and they don't have to play Georgia, and Florida State because they play in the ACC. Give me Florida State. Give me Florida State. I'm taking them. They are a 2.5 point underdog in this game in the state of Florida. But I'm gonna pick it in short based off quarterback play. I think they have the better quarterback in this game, and I think that's enough. I think that's super important in a game that should be decided by less than the field goal. Having the best quarterback to me is worth a lot. Florida State, my toss up, my last pick of the pick 6.
Man, that was definitely my number 1 pick for toss up. I was gonna go FSU.
Go LSU, buddy. You can fight me on it if you want to.
I could. I could. Um, but and that would be make for an interesting. They play Sunday night or Monday night. I think they play Monday night. No, they play
You know
Sunday
they
night.
play
That would
Sunday.
make for Duke and Clemson on Monday night. Yeah, that would make for an interesting Sunday night there. ABC 7:30. I feel like that's going to be a really good game in terms of shying away from the big games. I'm gonna go with a different one.
Mm-hmm.
Game day is actually going to be in this uh, town, in the town of
Okay.
Charlotte.
Okay.
ESPN's game day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, UNC plays USC.
Mm.
People, not
The
USC,
real
not the Trojans,
USC. The real USC.
but the Gamecocks. Yes. Um, I'm just mentioning it because it's a game that's being played there. I'm not saying that's going to be my pick.
Oh my gosh. Remember
I'm shying
who
away.
doesn't stall apparently.
I'm shying away from. I'm just being dramatic. That's all. That's all. I'm shying
Okay.
away from the big game. I'm gonna actually go down to Texas with the game being played in Houston, where we've got the UTSA Roadrunners favored by 2 points, and I'm taking UTSA. Why?
uh
I think that uh, Houston is going to be a bad team this year. So I am trying to pick against some of these. If this is what you would call a pick 'em, I know it's -2. Go ahead and give me UTSA to upset. Not an upset by our standards, but to upset the Cougars
they're the favorites in that
down
game.
in Houston.
UTSA is a 2-point favorite in that game. So it wouldn't be upset by anybody's standards. But yes, good.
No, wait. Hold on, wait. Now, let me defend myself. Let me defend myself. I'm saying a group of 5 team beating a uh, Power 5
Yeah,
opponent. Now
quote
that they are in
unquote,
the
quote unquote. Yeah,
Big 12,
that's fair.
first year, first game. So
Okay, so yes, an upset in the sense that Justin is saying it's an upset. He's got the UTSA Roadrunners. All right, so just reminder of my picks. I got my lock Tennessee -28. My toss up is Florida State over LSU, and my upset for 2 points, give me Nebraska over Minnesota. Hugie.
I yeah. So here we go. Louisville 7.5 point lock over Georgia Tech. UTSA is my toss up pick over Houston, and my upset is Colorado State over Washington State. May the best state school in that game win, and hopefully that's Colorado State. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that the cumulative points total is 0-0, and there's a few pictures here that we have from some things from the off season, some picks that people have recently made. We'll see if those things are true. We also have a highlight from last year's game against Indiana, the 1 foot inbound catch by Marvin Harrison Jr. So hopefully, if you're on the visual side and you're still watching this on YouTube, just make a few of you laugh there, as we have a sense of humor here on the BIA podcast. So that's it. It's game week. We hope that you all enjoy these plethora of games, and we will see you all next week for a recap of this game, and then looking forward to next game. And if you all have any ideas, maybe want to shoot over to what you want to hear, leave a comment, like a video, leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we will see you all later. Phil.
OH.
IO. Go Bucks.